gentlemen, to Bobo, Mango, and Donovan's Void. Today I sound like this because I have bronchitis. But Donovan and Mango forced me at gunpoint to toil, to labor as I die.
This is your cry for help?
Listen, guys, I'm blinking twice. I'm looking at guys, this is a cry for help. They are killing me, these people. They collude against me. I've tried to unionize, but like Jeff, they hate unions.
Yeah.
So just know, this is the state of today's episode. But no, I'm kidding. In today's episode, we're talking about situationships. I'm interested in situationships because that seems to be the direction that dating is going. So it turns out, for anyone who doesn't know, a situationship is an undefined relationship where both parties refuse to acknowledge that it has any weight, that it has any depth.
That's a great definition.
That's what I've gleaned. There's two phenomena that I want to talk about today. The rise of situationships directly correlating with the fall of hookup culture. Like, have you noticed that Gen Z, the girls are not doing this?
Yeah.
The girls are not doing hookup culture. They're looking at Catholicism and they're like, I prefer that.
Yeah.
They're looking at celibacy.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'd rather that. I also today want to talk about the correlation between romantic love and economic systems. I want to talk about how the shape and form of romantic relationships always follows the shape and form of the economic systems that they exist in. So the way relationships look under communism, the way relationships look under anarchy, the way relationships look under fascist regimes, and the way relationships look under late-stage capitalism will all look different and vary according to the economic systems they're in.
Yeah.
So here's my theory. Okay? I'm on my bell hooks now.
Yeah.
My theory is that the dialectic response of pussy, which is the rise of situationships against the drop of hookup culture and simultaneously the rise of celibacy, is that we've reached a stage of late-stage capitalism where people are so commodified and alienated and objectified and so alienated from their own humanity and the humanity of others that they both fail to connect with their own needs as well as the needs of others. And in failing to connect with your own needs and your needs of others, you fail to express what those needs are. And so you exist in a constant state of purgatory, which is just a situationship.
Right.
In the same way that we are dehumanized and objectified in the free market, we dehumanize and objectify each other on our apps, on dating apps. We scroll past each other, we select each other. The language that we use when it comes to dating, it's like, oh, is there stock?
Yeah.
How is the stock doing in Johannesburg?
Right.
The way we talk about, oh, it's an ick.
Yeah.
It's either a yes or a no. It's either a good deal or a bad deal. The way we talk about, like, well, what is he putting to the table versus what, we talk about the transaction of romantic love. Situationships, in my opinion, are a direct result of late-stage capitalism.
Yeah.
They're a direct symptom of late-stage capitalism because all romantic structures and all romantic relationships mirror the economic systems that they exist in.
Yeah.
And under late-stage capitalism, we're alienated, dehumanized, and miserable and unfulfilled in our lives. And in our relationships, we are alienated, dehumanized, miserable, and that's where it goes.
I really like this theory, and I completely agree. And as far as the way that the economy reflects dating and romance and relationships, the biggest thing I've noticed is that in order for love to exist, there has to be a vibrant, flourishing middle class.
Explain.
Middle classness is
Explain.
vital for real love. Because the more someone is an opportunity to you, the less you can truly love them. And I know that sounds really dramatic to people, but think about it. Like, when you're speaking to one of your homegirls, right, and she comes to tell you about the new man that she's been fucking with, and she's like, oh my God, girl, he got a car, he got a nice apartment. Everything that she describes materially, everything that she focuses on materially are things that she's not focusing on personally and emotionally. Every material factor you focus on are emotional factors that you're ignoring. So instead of focusing on the fact that he's a gentle, kind man, or the fact that he treats his mother very well, or the fact that he listens to you, you're focusing on the price of his car, or the price of his house, the price of his watch. So inherently, as humans with the ability to only focus on but so many things, the more material things matter, the less immaterial things matter. And what I really think situationships are the dialectical response to a generation that was both told that they deserve the world. Because you sat on a screen all day and watched these exuberant, beyond imaginable lives. So you're taught to think that you deserve the entire world, but then you're also taught that advocating for yourself is cringe and needy, right? So I'm taught that I need everything. I'm taught that I deserve everything, but I'm also taught that to look someone in the eyes and be vulnerable and say hey, I really need this. I need XYZ from you. That's now cringe. You get what I mean? So what happens is people end up playing this really stupid game of emotional chicken where I'm waiting for you to blink. I'm waiting for you to ask me to be your girlfriend, but then you're waiting for me to ask you to be your boyfriend.
You know what's interesting?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but I don't want to forget this train of thought. What's interesting when you say that is that dynamic directly mirrors the dynamic of the co-worker and the employee. In the marketplace, we are taught that you should negotiate and never settle for anything less than your worth.
Yeah.
At the same time, it is taboo to directly and explicitly state how much you want to get paid for this job.
Right.
And so we end up in this dynamic as potential employees and potential employers where there's this game of I have a competitive salary, but I'm not allowed to ask what that competitive salary is.
Right.
And I'm not allowed to state what I think I'm worth getting paid, because then that's cringe.
Yeah.
But you're also not allowed to explicitly, state listen, bitch.
Yeah.
This job is $10 an hour. Let's there's this inherent taboo and cringeness that is associated with discussing your worth in the labor marketplace.
Yeah.
And that is reflected in the dating world, where it is cringe to discuss your worth.
Right.
Whatever that means, your value as a commodity in the dating world.
Yeah. Something I find really interesting too is that never has a generation struggled more with getting over their exes. Have you noticed that? It's never been harder to get over past relationships, past traumas, past people who've wronged you, because now they're all a click away. Like in the 1950s, when you broke up with a nigga, you could just move to another town and never see another picture of him again, never hear his voice again. Now, Instagram and Twitter and being able to check up on your past lovers' lives leads you to this point of constantly re-traumatizing yourself. And what I've noticed with younger people is they never get over trauma from their past relationships, and then they weaponize the vulnerability of expressing that to a new partner as an excuse to never legitimize the relationship.
Interesting.
I was listening to this couple talk, because I like eavesdropping on other couples.
Yes.
It's fun. And this guy was having this conversation with this woman about why he doesn't want to make her his girlfriend.
What are the reasons?
And he was going on this long rant about oh, my ex hurt me, and that's why I just can't commit to anyone, and my therapist said that I should just take it slow. And it's is this vulnerability, or is this just someone weaponizing their past trauma to not have to take a risk and legitimize a relationship with someone? But we've normalized this, and I think there's something to be said about like weaponized vulnerability. There's something to be said about giving a whole generation like therapy speak, and allowing people to use that to basically avoid any accountability in the future, because they can constantly reference their past trauma. There's a generation of people who refuse to get over their prior relationships, and they leverage that as an excuse for why they can just stay in this perpetual state of situationship.
Do you think that these people refuse to get over it, or do you think that they're unable? So I just started reading this book by Milan Kundera, my favorite author of all time. So I just started reading this book by Milan Kundera, who is my favorite author of all time. And the book is called The Joke. And in one of the first few chapters, he describes this budding relationship between a man and a woman who meet at a communist rally in Czechoslovakia. And they develop this bond over their like mutual political leanings. And, you know, they're both in the middle of a revolution, and they fall in love with each other. And he becomes a politician, and she becomes a politician's wife. But he fundamentally develops sort of a deeper passion for politics and his career. But for her, he is her whole life. And so Milan Kundera sort of describes this dynamic where he says she begins to grow tired and impatient of waiting for this relationship to progress past the puppy love stage, because they met, they fell in love, and he had other things going on. So like that love was enough for him. Like the beginning stages of like the puppy love is fine. But for her, she didn't go into politics, develop another career, develop a passion. So for her, that relationship was all she had. And so she now views this relationship as the project of her life. And so it's something that needs to be constantly improved on and needs to be constantly built into something bigger and something better. And Milan Kundera says that because of this condition between like men having multiple projects to fulfill them going on versus women having none of that, and so the project of our lives ultimately has to be the men that we're with.
Yeah.
And because of this condition, fundamentally, men are happy to remain in the puppy love stage because they have other things going on.
Very interesting.
Women, on the other hand, we're not taught to have anything going on.
Yeah.
We're socialized to believe that love and finding a husband and the man who will eventually pick you is the center of your life. That becomes your one final and ultimate project. And because it's your project, it constantly needs to be built on, constantly needs to be developed, constantly needs to be worked on. It needs to be moving somewhere, going somewhere. And so women can never stay in this puppy love stage because it feels to them as if our project is not developing, that our project isn't going anywhere. Men have other projects to fulfill them, so they're okay with staying in the puppy phase. So because of this, women will never be content in the puppy phase. Men will always be content in the puppy phase. So eventually, a woman's role in relationships is to nag the man to fundamentally move up from the puppy stage with her, and the man will resent the woman because he was happy where he was. And ultimately he'll choose to, because it's better to just like go along with this than to have to find another woman who will nag you to do the same thing.
Right.
So he will begrudgingly do it, but then that will be the foundation of the dynamic. I think this phenomenon of situationships is like millennial men, Gen Z men, just putting 10 toes down. Being like, I'm not progressing past this. This is fine.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with me feeling like this is fine.
Yeah.
I have other things going on in my life.
Yeah.
But I think that is a fundamental incompatibility that creates situationships. What do you think?
That's fascinating. And I really think that at the core of this issue is this really fucked advice being given to men, which is that you shouldn't even be considering romance until you have your house in order, until you have your finances in order. And that's being pushed both by other men and women, you know? Shouldn't be dating if you're broke. Shouldn't be trying to start a family if you're broke. So what we think we have to do is go into a cave and better ourselves until we can become a person that is viable to a woman, right? We should crawl into a cage, shut off all of our interpersonal relationships, not date, not even think about women at all, until we have something to offer you guys. And that's a really tempting message because a part of it rings true, you know? When you're a man and you're trying to date a woman without any resources, without any stability, it ends up not working because you don't have anything to offer. You don't have anything to share. But in that process, you develop an obsession with your work. And that inherently takes you away from being a partner that would be viable emotionally in a relationship. One of my favorite analogies from one of my favorite comedians is that for men, dating is like being a man out on the ocean in a boat and you're fishing, right? I'm trying to catch my bride. I'm trying to catch my wife. So I'm throwing my fishing rod into the ocean and eventually I find a fish I really like. And then I'm in the boat, I'm having a great time with the fish. And then the fish is going, hey, well, you know, now that we're together, why do you even still need your fishing rod? Why do you even still need this boat? Are you still trying to catch other fish? I thought that I was enough. So then the man eventually goes like, oh, okay, I guess you're right. And then he gives away the fishing rod and then he gives away the boat. And then after a few years of that, the fish then looks at the man like, this nigga don't even got a boat. This nigga don't even got a fishing. So men are constantly torn between this dynamic of, I need the fishing rod. I need to be someone who is capable of catching a fish. That's what's attractive to you. But once we, quote unquote, have you, you guys become resentful or it becomes problematic that I even still have a fishing rod, that I even still have a boat. But no fish wants a nigga without a boat. So what is the answer here? Do men prioritize their careers? Do they prioritize their interpersonal relationships with women? I don't know. Because being a man with nothing going on, being a man with nothing to offer, being a man with no resources, makes being in a relationship with a woman that is mutually beneficial impossible. Because women do have this inherent thing to add to men's lives. You know, you guys have something that is non-monetary that you bring to relationships. It's the way you guys care for us. It's the way you guys take care of us. It's the way you guys know how to build and maintain a household. You guys have something that is non-monetary that you can intrinsically add to a relationship. In socialized gender binary world, what men are supposed to add are the resources. That comes from a career. In an increasingly tough economic outlook, I have to become obsessed with my career, which then takes me away from you. So the real question that I actually want your answer on is, do you think your partner should be the most important thing in your life? Or do you think that a relationship can only be healthy if both parties have something more important to themselves than each other?
It's definitely the latter. In order for a relationship to be healthy, both people need to not view the relationship as their everything. They need to view the relationship as a component of their everything. They need to have other things to keep them going, to give them fulfillment.
So I need to keep
to give them meaning. Well, I don't see why the boat needs to be other women. But here's the other thing.
But would you stay with a nigga if he's not attractive to other women?
Here's the thing. I think, here's my unpop. Men are gonna hate this.
Let's go.
Men are gonna, let me get ready.
Yeah.
Let me roll up my sleeves. Men are under the delusion that all of the things you do in pursuit of women is for women, when if you guys were being honest with yourselves, your pursuit of women is for other men. And that shows in how warped your priorities are in the context of your romantic relationships with other women. So men have this ideal that in order for us women to love men, you guys have to be the biggest, strongest, fastest, richest guy in the world. When in reality, that is a standard that women don't use to measure you.
I disagree.
That is a standard that men use to measure your worth against each other. But because men fundamentally prioritize male validation over women's love or women's validation, you conflate the two. Are your standards for what it means to be a suitable partner defined by women, or are they defined by other men?
My point is that women have internalized the values and teachings of patriarchy so much that it's all arbitrary at this point. There actually is no difference between women's standards and men's standards. It's all been homogenized and internalized so much that it's all arbitrary at this point. For example, we have a mutual friend. Her and her man fight every single day, right?
Yeah.
And she was saying she was watching her man attempt to flirt with another woman, and the other woman was completely disinterested, and she's never been less attracted to her man in her entire life. That's an example of that, right? At this point, we've been running patriarchy for so long that women are starting to perpetuate it just as much as men are. And I think this is a deep flaw in liberalism as a concept. Liberalism as a concept is, do not question the institution. It's more about getting the right people in the role, right? It's not about the position of being the CEO of Raytheon as inherently being something that shouldn't exist. It's, we need a trans CEO of Raytheon. So when women got power and status in society recently, it's a very recent phenomenon, and not to say it's equal at all, but now as women do get more and more power, and we're not questioning the fundamental structure of the institutions themselves, women are just inheriting the values and priorities of patriarchal, fucked up, misogynistic men, because we never changed the institution. So right now in the West, women are actually making a lot more money. Everything about cis-het relationships is built and founded on the idea that men are the providers and women are the nurturers, caretakers of them. That shit is completely defunct in the modern economy. Women are out-earning men. Women are in more financially stable positions. They have skill sets that are more stable, as opposed to men are in more high-risk, unstable industries. So what's happening now is that women are demanding other things from men. I don't need you to be a provider anymore. I don't need you to be a protector. Now I'm looking for someone who's emotionally competent. Now I'm looking for someone who's nurturing. Now I'm looking for a best friend. Now I'm looking for someone to travel with. Now I'm looking for someone to be vulnerable with. Men have not learned any of that shit. No one has ever taught us that shit. No one's ever told us to value that shit. So the entire thing is out of whack, you know? So two things have to happen here. I think that women have to find a way to balance this new status and the ability to out-earn men with not inheriting all of our bullshit. Because it is bullshit, right? Like, we agree that capital, money, it's a very patriarchal idea, right? It's all rooted in the agricultural revolution, private property, roping off land, feeling as if you own someone. So, for example, if women don't question the fundamental structure of the patriarchy and capitalism as they advance in society, you can get to a point that, much like the patriarchal men of past, you feel like once you make more money than someone in a relationship, you get to tell them to shut the fuck up and what to do and what to and to not be okay with, right? So now that women are out earning men, I'm noticing a lot of women inheriting that patriarchal concept of the second I make more money, I wear the pants in the relationship. Nigga, shut the fuck up. Shut your bitch ass up. Who paid for this? Dude, right? Right? Do we not see that happening as well? And it's because if you step into that position without fundamentally addressing what that position is, what is that position built on? It's built on violence. It's built on subjugation. It's built on authoritarianism. It's built on the idea that someone's worth and value in a household is based on how much money they bring in. You're going to inherit all of the ails of what men have been dealing with for the past 2,000 years, which is the death of love, the death of genuine connection, an obsession with domination, the dark triad, Machiavellianism, narcissism, sadism. And I've noticed a lot of women inheriting a lot of the traits that I hate about my own gender. All of the shit that I just find disgusting about men. And I used to find women's company and women's opinion a like sweet relief from. I'm just noticing that as more and more women like inherit power, they just end up being corroded by all of the same things I've watched ruin the men in my life.
Interesting. This goes back to the initial point we made at the beginning of the conversation, which is that relationships mirror the economic models that they exist in.
Yeah.
And the economic model that is late stage capitalism, or really just capitalism, is power dynamics. It is subjugation. It is exploitation. It is one person having power over the other. That is the driving force of this economy. That's what's going to happen in any couple. The couple will inevitably embody the characteristics of the superior person or the dominant person over the subjugated person.
Right.
And that's because we step into those roles in the workplace, but the mind is not so advanced
Right.
that it can split itself into two and exist in two different modes of existence while tricking itself that both those modes are equally valid. No. If you have to go to work every day and be a Machiavellian, narcissistic, dominant boss in order to make a living, you're going to inherently bring that personality back home. Because human beings are fundamentally indivisible. The idea of separation between private life and public life is just propaganda. There's no such thing. You are in your public life who you are in your private life. You are in your private life who you are in your public life. So who you are in the public life, which is either the subservient slave, the worker, the docile person, that's who you're going to be, unfortunately, in your romantic dynamic with people, unless you work really, really hard to unpack and like separate yourself from your identity as a laborer in the marketplace. I feel like the only way to experience genuine love is to separate your identity entirely from the marketplace of capitalism.
Yes.
Because like once you have an identity there, that identity will follow you in your private life.
Yeah.
And make love impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And I think that not only does your relationship have to transcend money, it also has to transcend gender and gender
Explain.
essentialist ideas.
Explain.
So we were having this conversation the other day about when someone in a relationship is unemployed or when someone in a relationship is falling on hard times,
Yeah.
how it is normalized for a man to kind of not really think twice as far as like, oh no, let me cover that. I'll pay your rent. I'll do. But for women, because they haven't normalized this yet, they haven't gotten used to the idea of being the financially dominant one, it feels a lot crazier to step in and be like, oh, I'll handle that for you. But to me, when you really love someone, you shouldn't view them as a gender. You should view them as someone that you care about.
Right.
So to me, no matter what my gender is, if I claim to love someone and I have $1 million and I'm watching them struggle to pay their rent, the idea that I'm thinking about what gender they are before offering help is insane to me.
Yeah.
I think that to truly love someone should be to not view them as a gender.
As a construct.
Right. And not view them through the lens of, oh, well, a man's supposed to pay for this or a woman's supposed to. I just care about you and I'm watching you struggle. And I would be lying to myself to say that I love you, to not intervene when I'm watching someone I care about struggle.
Right.
You know? So that's really what we're struggling with right now. And to be honest, the idea that once you get more resources, you can get away with more unethical behavior is a deeply patriarchal idea. Like
deeply capitalist idea.
Right. And the statistic that is terrifying every single man right now is that, one, women initiate 80% of divorces, and it usually happens when the woman starts making more money, right? So there's something to be said that it seems as if inside capital, inside of money, are the values of patriarchy.
Yes.
Right? And when a woman makes more and more money, she inherits more and more of those patriarchal values.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems as if maybe it wasn't ever about gender this whole time. Maybe it was always about power.
Absolutely.
Maybe it was always about the fact that when the human mind gets more resources than it knows what to do with, it gets sadistic. You know, it starts enjoying the domination of other people.
Yeah.
And I also think something that a lot of, let's say, left-leaning or Marxist people don't think about is the inherent psychological trauma that happens when something has been withheld from you for so long and then you finally get it. Something kind of snaps within your brain.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot in South Africa, where after apartheid, people went from being agrarian farmers to millionaires in dollars.
Yes.
Overnight.
Sent to millionaires.
Sent to millionaires.
Yeah.
In dollars overnight. That's not psychologically healthy.
Yeah.
So in the Marxist utopian dream, or let's say like that critical theory lens of feminism, where there's this image of one day there's going to be this violent revolution and finally the last shall be first. And the people who were subjugated will now have the power, right? There will be a dictatorship of the proletariat.
Yeah.
Women will get to run the world.
Yeah.
The future is female. There's this idea that anyone who's been subjugated their whole life would be ready for that amount of power. And instead wouldn't lash out and get drunk off of that power. And overcompensate for all the times they were denied of something. And I think that we have this really childish idea that after the revolution comes utopia, when after the revolution really comes anarchy. What we're experiencing now isn't this revolutionary utopia where everything is now free and fair and balanced and people are in better, more fulfilling interpersonal relationships. What we're experiencing is anarchy.
Yeah.
What we're experiencing is situationships.
Yeah.
This theme that after the revolution comes anarchy, not utopia, is found in the oldest story of liberation ever, which is like the story of the Jews in the Bible leaving Egypt, where
What's the story?
Well, the story is that they were being oppressed by this tyrannical pharaoh in Egypt, and then they finally got their freedom. But after getting their freedom, they had to wander in the desert for 40 years before they could really get to the promised land. I think that a lot of us, it could be through Hollywood or through like political beliefs, we've been told to kind of view as pure doctrine. We just think that after we get our freedom, life is going to be perfect and everything's going to be fixed immediately.
Yeah.
But it's like we've been talking about a lot in the past few episodes. You have to be a different person. So in order for women to fundamentally have those fulfilling relationships that they want to have now that they have their freedom, or in order for men to have these fulfilling relationships that we want to have now that we've been free from the prison of masculinity, we would have to change our priorities. Because freedom itself isn't the ticket to utopia. Freedom is just that. It's the freedom to destroy yourself.
Yeah. Freedom inherently is vague.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because something that I've realized is that the quality of your relationship depends so much more on your ability and skill at loving than it does on the object of your love. The person you choose to be in love with is so much less important in the quality of your relationship than your ability to love, your skill at being loved. And I think in a commodity marketplace and in a commodity economic system or a consumer-based economic system, the idea is that the quality of your life depends on the objects that you choose, as opposed to how good you are at dealing with objects in life.
Yeah. Having the newest object, the shiniest object. Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that situationships exist is because people insist on staying in this constant state of purgatory in the hopes that there'll be a new, shinier object.
Yeah.
And that the one I'm with now, I'm kind of unsure about because there might be a better object.
Right.
Because in the consumer marketplace,
There always
you
is.
might have an iPhone 7 now, but you know that in like 10 months, there's gonna be a new one. And because our relationships mirror the economic systems that we exist in, and we have fundamentally commodified ourselves in our lives and in our romantic relationships, we also view each other as commodities. So when someone is swiping on you in the Tinder marketplace, in the dating app marketplace, when they are swiping on you amongst the sea of commodities, they're also looking at what are your specs. They're looking at you as your specs are gender, height, country, occupation, college, university, in the same way that a car has specs of color, diesel, petrol, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it is a hard ask to ask someone that exists in a consumer-based commodity economic system to view people as complex human beings and not as commodities and specs, as one-dimensional gender, occupation. And when you look at the way people choose each other and the way people prioritize the object of their desire over the skill of loving, you see exactly how capitalist they are in the pursuit of love. But capitalism negates love, and capitalism makes love impossible. So if you're going to approach love in a capitalist lens, you have to accept that love will never be in reach for you.
Right.
And you have to accept that, like, if you want love, bitch, it will never fit neatly into the construct of capitalism. Like, love will never make sense in these constructs.
Yeah. The funniest and saddest part about viewing each other as commodities is we forgot the number one rule of commodities under late stage capitalism, which is planned obsolescence. They're not made to last.
Yeah.
Why would Tinder want you to marry and settle down with the next man you swipe
need
on?
you back
They'd be
on.
out of business.
Yeah.
Why would they want that?
Yeah.
No one wants these they make more money from you in this perpetual state of situationships and hookup culture. And there's a saying in film, which is that the best camera is the camera you have right now, which is that it's not about the camera, right?
Yeah,
it's about your eye. Composition is free. You know, knowing how to deal with colors is free. Knowing how to shoot someone in a way that captures their essence is free.
Yeah.
So the point is, stop obsessing over the camera.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you to like stay with your man because he might be a bum, right? And he might beat you.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that we all need to take accountability for the role that we played in setting up whatever relationship, whatever situationship, whatever thing that we're doing, right? We contributed 50% to whatever dynamic that we end up with.
Yeah.
So even if you change the nigga, even if you change the woman, you are still going to at least contribute 50% to whatever the problems in whatever your next situation will be if you don't address something within yourself.
Yeah. It's because love is not a product.
Yeah.
It's not the thing you attain at the end of your journey. Love is a skill. Like it's an art that you constantly work on every day because it gives your life meaning.
Yeah.
And like, if you approach it as a product, as we approach everything in a consumer-based marketplace, you will be just as alienated and unfulfilled as you are every time you purchase a new product.
Yeah. And your relationship will last just about as long as your last phone.
Yeah.
And how long was that?
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas if you approach it as an art, it will last just as form as the art form that you cherish, that you do not to make money, but because it gives your life meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
that's,
it's true.
that's love.
Yeah.
That's our philosophy of love.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for forcing you to do this podcast with bronchitis.
That was love.
Yeah.
That was you being love, doing love.
Personally, I think it's sexy. I don't know.
Let us know. Is this bronchitis voice? Is
it doing it for you?
Because we can keep it going.
Yeah.
I can fuck up my tonsils for money. I will fuck up my tonsils. But thank you for listening. Let us know what you think, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Cool. That's good.
That was so good. That was under my face.
Yeah, yeah.
We were on our bell hooks.